You're a Greek god. You just have to find the right way to tap into your own wisdom. Depending on the life situation and the planetary influence of Mercury that you have, you understand how that planet's going to play out. Why is it affecting you? And that's an individuation process. Mercury, the little rocky planet influencing your 360 astrological wheel. Why is Mercury so important, and why am I emphasizing it in this video? Mercury is in the middle of your moon and your sun. The sun is the conscious, is what we're actively doing during the day. We're following a pattern, we're consciously doing things. The moon is when we're on a deep rest, we're in an inner state of being. And Mercury within would be how we transmute information, how we communicate those two pathways. So how we use our sun, our conscious, and our moon is highly influenced in how our thought forms, our mental toolboxes are used. The more we can understand the unique ways we think, the unique ways we communicate, the more we can use that to our advantage to form new synaptic connections in our brain, to create new patterns. Mercury is so important because it's the transmuting of information between your sun and your moon. The more you understand the unique ways you have of processing information that you get from your conscious to your unconscious, then the more aware of how you process information, how you process your memory, how you label emotions, how you use your creativity. Those are all the thought forms you create with your Mercury to transmute information. Mercury is your tool, how you use your toolboxes, how you use what you know versus what you don't know from your unconscious world. That's why Mercury is so important. It's understanding how you could be so grounded in your own unique toolboxes that every time you receive an unconscious thought, you're aware of it and you recognize the unique ways you can tap into transmuting that to the conscious mind to then use that and take care of your shadow repressed thoughts. From below the sun, you're in the unknown. You're in the subconscious world. The sun is everything we're conscious of, everything we're doing in the everyday, but that's only 5% of our brain. Everything that's below, our roots, our moon cycles, our mood, everything that deals with the emotional mammal aspect of ourselves. That's our moon. The subconscious is where the moon would be at, because the moon represents the cycles of the moons. So every moon cycle we get, we feel a different way subconsciously. That's more the mammal aspect of the limbic system. When we look at the brain, over here, this would be the limbic system. Here you're getting the cues. That's where you're present. You're aware of the emotional cycles you get from the moon. That's here. That would be here, the moon, the subconscious world. And then here is your cerebellum, the unconscious. That's everything that's autonomic. You're fully unaware of those thought forms, of those beliefs, of those unconscious patterns, of those shadow traits of yourself. It just automatically happens based on the emotional weight you hold. The more weight you store, the more autonomic that mood becomes. The reason why understanding Mercury through astrology is so important is because the more we understand that we're conscious and our subconscious worlds connect, the more we can manage our mind, the more we can manage these two worlds, the more we can evolve, the more confident we can be in who we are. Astrology is the individuation of your psyche. So it's astronomy and then astrology. It's first looking at the planets and then how they individually play out as a philosophy of your psyche. That's what Jung mainly talked about, individuation. How does the energies play out internally and then manifest externally? That's for you to decode. An astrologer can tell you many things about how the scientific aspects could have played out, but you have to internalize that and see what resonates and what doesn't. But before you do that, you have to have a broad perspective, a broad understanding of how it all plays out. And then you see it from an exterior and understand the little details that can help you decode shadow aspects of yourself, shadow traits that you might have not seen. It's like a reflection for you to see if it resonates or not. Mercury in the chart archetypally comes from Hermes. Hermes was the Greek god of wisdom, quicksilver, how we transmute information. how we interpret, and then how we externalize that. How do we process what we see and how we think internally? It's the most prevalent in your chart because it's the operator. It's the transmutation of everything that you have stored, every knowledge, every memory, everything you've perceived, every unconscious thought that your senses perceived since you were 6 years old. So now, how do you use that to creatively deal with things? And looking at the chart, understanding what area of life it's in, and understanding the different parts and aspects that your own unique Mercury has, you can get a better understanding of the unique ways it's influenced. So for instance, I'm gonna hang myself up in the cross. My Mercury is in the 5th house, in Aquario. So first of all, we have to understand that the houses are different than the signs. It's first the houses, and then the signs, and then the aspects, and then that forms the uniqueness of whatever you're specifically looking within your own mathematical equation. That's why you have to have a better understanding of how it all works out together as an individual, and then decode it with questions specifically to what you're looking. For instance, now we're targeting communication. I have my Mercury in the 5th house. Each house is ruled by a sign. The 12 houses have an archetypal figure that are the Zodiac signs. The 5th house is ruled by Leo. Leo is known for being the entertainer, the lion, the lioneer. So Leo likes to creatively express itself. When we look at the broad picture of my wheel, we see that my Mercury, my intellect, how I use and process information, I like to entertain people, or I like to communicate with people. I like to write, I like to talk. You see my videos, I like to share my perspective on things. That's what my mind is always on. It's about processing information and seeing how can I entertain this to other people? How can I be entertained by this? That's the intellect. How do I use my mind? And my mind is in the 5th house, Leo. I'm always trying to either show that or be shown that. My 5th house in my own chart is in Aquario, which is the opposite sign of Leo. There's many ways to interpret how these energies would play out, but basically the way I process information, the way I use my logic, the way I internalize things, it's in a Leo archetypal way, but with the aspect, with the planets that shape my own unique 5th house. And I have many planets there. Plus the 5th house is in Aquario / Capricorn. So that is the factor we have to look at, because that's going to give you your own unique blueprint. Since my ascendant is in Virgo, it means that my own unique chart starts in Virgo. Then I have in the 5th house, I have Capricorn, and then I have Aquario in the 6th house. But that's because I'm a Virgo ascendant. That means that the houses are placed in a different chronological order than what the main chart is. If your ascendant is in Taurus, then your 1st house would be Taurus. And then that's how you start calculating your chart. Then your 2nd house would be Gemini, and so on, so forth. Because of the degree, my Capricorn house is interlinked between the 4th and the 5th house, and then I have interlinked the 5th and the 6th house in Aquario and Capricorn. My Mercury would play out archetypal ways from Aquario and Capricorn. So then we have to decode what are Aquario and Capricorn characteristics and what planets are they ruled by. Then we get into this whole mathematical equation of things, stories, archetypes, of how we can decode our own unique energies. So the better I understand what Capricorn represents and what Aquarius represents, the better understanding I'm going to have of how the 5th house, the 5th life force, would play out in my chart. The life situation is already set. It's the energetical life stance of how it's going to play out. So if I have Mercury there, it means that I'm always going to be on that automatically because I have Mercury in the 5th house. The life situation is what you entertain and what you like to be entertained by, as we said. Depending on the life situation and the planetary influence of Mercury that you have, then you understand how that planet's going to play out. Why is it affecting it? And that's for you to decode. But it's about that introspection and understanding how did you internalize information. Looking at this from, let me apply everything together, let me introspect it and see if it works for me. And that's an individuation process. You're a Greek god. You just have to find the right way to tap into your own wisdom. And we can have so many blockages externally or internally that are affecting us from becoming who we want to be, from understanding where we want to go. It's not about the big jump you have to take, it's about the little steps you have to change to understand what patterns am I stuck on mentally that then manifest externally. So these are the main things we have to look for when we're looking at our chart for targeting our Mercury. Mercury, the sign, the house, and the aspect. All of this will give you a combination of how your Mercury is going to play out. We've discussed that, but now it gets into the tricky part where you have to see what other planets you have aspecting your own Mercury, because that's going to tell you how and what other influences you're getting to your Mercury, and that could be external influences. That could be from other people, from other people's beliefs, from other people's thoughts, or even from external circumstances. It could be external or internal, depending on how it plays out unique in your chart. That could be influencing you way differently than if you start to compare yourself based on only the sign you have there. You have to look deeper. You have to see what's aspecting it, what house it's in. How does it all shape that energy within? In my chart, have Venus, Neptune, and Mercury. The combination of these three planets makes up my fifth house. So my fifth house is in Aquario. So I have the Aquario archetypal structure. Then within that house, I have Venus, Neptune, and Mercury there. Then I see what are the aspects, the conjunctions that they have aspected in. For instance, I have Venus, trine, ascendant. Then I have Mercury, sextile, Pluto. So I'm sure you've all heard about Pluto, the generational outer planet of transformation. The deepness of Pluto is that it's the modern ruler of Scorpio, but it's actually Mars. But if I have Mercury, sextile, Pluto, this is the way this could play out. Pluto is the planet of transformation. I like to think about ways of transforming. I like to think about psychological topics. I like to think about the unknown, about philosophy, about all of these things that are more deep. That's where I can interpret, where I like to be more deep with the way I think. That's what, in combination with everything, starts to decode that. And I'm trying to break this down as simple as I can, and I will eventually, just to give an understanding. I don't want to keep going because I feel like I'm going to make it more complex, but I'm going to do a second part going deeper into this. The more self-aware we are of the possible energies, the more we can start to decode, and the more knowledge we have within to apply that to the episodic memories and understand the planets, the energies, and everything, is a combination that we have to see mathematically. Go see your chart. And if you're new to astrology, is basically just going to many websites like AstroSeek. It's going to tell you this basic stuff, and then you can start to learn about these things and see if it resonates. I'm going to go deeper into this, but I briefly want to start to introduce these topics because it uniquely helped me understand parts of myself that are just make sense.